This is Mary Miller, and today is June 10th, 2026. I am here with Jim Lewis conducting an interview on behalf of the Historical Advisory Committee. Thank you for being with us today, Jim. Can you share with us what credentials you hold?
I currently only hold our NCST. I used to be EEG Tech, our EEG Tech, but it expired and I was supposed to fill out a form to get it emeritus status, but I never did. I never got around to it. So I am only our NCST now.
Okay. Where were you trained and when you received your credentials and where you are currently working, or if you've retired, please share that with us.
Okay, well, that's a great story. Well, I was trained in the U.S. Navy. The when you join the Navy, you get these MOSs, you get these jobs that they think you'd be good at, and somehow they thought I'd be good as an electrician, electronics electrician, and then they got me into boot camp, ran my legs off. I was feeling pretty good, thinking this might not be so bad. And then they gave me a colorblind test and said, "You can't do that job." And I said, "Well, shoot, what am I going to do now?" And they gave me three choices, and one of them was what's called a hospital corpsman. So in the Navy, the hospital corpsman, he runs with the Marines in the field. He sits on the ships underway. He's a jack of all trades, anything medicine. And the Navy corpsmen take care of all the Marines too. So I was about 2.5 years into my enlistment. And the chief on the ship, he came to me and says, "Jim, I want you to stay in. You are fantastic at this job. And I think you're really, really good." And I said, "Chief, I have been in the Mediterranean Sea watching us try to kick Gaddafi's butt for 14 months. Pretty much straightforward." I said, "I'm not staying in. I'm getting out." And his answer back to me was, "What if I found you a job? As a general duty corpsman, you're not really, I mean, you would get out and have to take all the classes to be an MA, to be a LPN. You'd have to take them because you're not actually qualified right out of the Navy." So I gave him a list of three. That's what he asked for. And the third thing on that list of three was electroencephalography school. And I couldn't even spell it, much less pronounce it. But it was September of 1982. And I said, "You know what? Sign me up. It gets me out of here and gets me back into the United States." So I did it. It was only a 6-month school at the time. And of course, a lot of things in the military are, accelerated because they're paying you as you're learning. It's not like you grab tuition and give it to them. They're paying you as you do it. So I did. I went there and I actually kind of liked it. I did. I thought at first, doing the hair would be a little bit weird, but 95% of your patients don't have any. Although I'll tell a great story on the final exam where you hooked up the patient and you got graded and the whole 9 yards, and you get all nervous. You can only make so many mistakes measuring, and he was a real live retiree. I grabbed his chart and I think he was 78 years old or something like that. I said, "In like Flint." Yeah. So in he comes, and I'm thinking, no hair, measurements are going to be from across the room. And he has been protesting the war and had hair down past his shoulders. But I passed. So then from there, I went to VA Long Beach and did just EEGs, little 8-channel grass, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze individual little tubes. And again, I decided to get out when I got out, and I did. And that was the start of my real career.
What year did you get credentialed?
I got credentialed after I got out.
Okay.
Again, inside the service, it didn't seem to matter too much.
Mhm.
But I got credentialed in 1989 in Kansas City. They actually had the conference in Kansas City, and that's where I got credentialed. Back then, we did all 4 parts. You did a real life hookup, a real life recording, and let me see. Then you did record review, and then there was that sort of that review of everything, if I remember right. I was really, really nervous, but I passed and stayed there in Kansas City, working in Kansas City until, and in between this time, I had the opportunity to learn to do nerve conductions. So between the time I got out of the service and the time I did my EEG boards, I was also finding myself doing an awfully lot of nerve conductions, which for anyone who knows me knows I love it. I love nerve conductions more than anything else in the world, and I have a story for that too. But right now I'll stick to basics, and I got registered in EMG in Chicago, in nerve conduction in Chicago in 1990, so just 1 year later.
That's impressive. So,
Well, love it.
currently, are you working? Are you retired?
I am 3 weeks retired. I didn't see your video on my retirement video.
Nobody reached out to me to do a video for you, or I would have done it for sure.
43 minutes of people telling me how great I was. I
Well,
didn't listen to any of the 43 minutes. That stuff's hard for me, But my
well,
wife told me.
I've expressed a lot of my gratitude for everything you've ever done for me.
Absolutely. And what's that going to mean to me? So I am officially retired from nerve conduction EMG, from EEG, because I continue to do EEG for years.
Mhm.
Did it in, filling capacities and things like that. So I never lost my touch. Well, or at least my patients never told me I lost my touch. I was lucky enough to be part of a head injury study that was done after Vietnam War, and we were doing hemifacial visual evoked potentials, and we were collecting data. We collected, some people say, I don't know, I can't do evoked potentials good anymore. We were doing 400 a year, but we were collecting data and doing the hemi fields and stuff like that. You're collecting multis on top of multis, but it was a learning experience like you wouldn't believe.
So, what drew you to electrodiagnostic studies, and particularly the field of neuromuscular diagnostics?
Luck. It was luck.
Luck.
I got the first one I got to watch, first one I got to do. And then later on, and this is all part of kind of in time sequence, I found out the fourth part of my love, and that was teaching. I was still in Kansas City, and there was no one to teach, and everyone needed to learn how to do nerve conductions along with them, and that's where I really fell in love. This is what got me up in the morning.
So, since there was really no one to teach, should I take that as it wasn't a well-known specialty during that period of time that you were coming into the space?
I would agree it was not well known, and of course, like the doctors would have to do it. So there was a little bit of selling job. They found out that this guy over there at Truman could do nerve conductions. And then it started hitting, saying, boy, that would save me some time if I was out there, if I could do a little exam down in the ICU, or, a couple outpatient procedures, if my tech was doing that. And it came at a time where that became popular because that was not popular much at all. You'd see it in big teaching hospitals is the only place you'd see it.
So, in your early career, who were your mentors in electrodiagnostic medicine?
Well, in nerve conduction, I got to tell you, in EEG, when I think about that, and I think, the books that we had back then, they're 2,000 pages, and they were sleepers for sure. You learned a lot about polysomnography reading EEG books, but it got better. And the same thing happened in nerve conduction. There wasn't a lot of publications out there, and they weren't always on target for a technologist. And again, I pick on one of my mentors, Kimura, his 1992 edition of his book was the hardest read in the world. You simply couldn't read it. You could use it as a research tool, but you couldn't read it. And again, so many of the physicians were writing for physicians. As time went on, and we started getting some really great technologists who could sit down and write paper. We have technologists who had degrees in education, and they started writing. If it wasn't a paper, maybe a small paper, maybe a whole topic. That's what started it. I think also for the techs to start getting in there and starting to learn. It wasn't sleeper material. It was actually fun to read.
Well, speaking of mentors, you're definitely one of my top mentors of my career, and I'm always going to appreciate you for that. So, for the next question, what early experiences or influences shaped you and your career in this field?
When I started doing nerve conductions, and even more when I started teaching nerve conductions, that really changed my life. It did. From this guy who'd do an EEG talk and use the colors of different kinds of candies, and if you got it right, you got the candy and stuff, really kind of basic stuff, to loving it so much. I just, to me, it just happened natural. I don't know that I ever put a finger on it, but a lot of it is the people. I've met so many great people. I have so many great friends.
So, if you had not gone into electrodiagnostic studies, what path do you think you would have taken?
Well, I think it would have been somewhere in the psychiatric role, maybe aid on a unit or something. I think I always had the ability to communicate. And sometimes when things were tough, I could communicate. I actually, that's where I started when I first went to college. And I got into the Navy because my first semester in college, I was not invited back. So I didn't I didn't do so well in it. Oh, I thought I'd be good at it.
So, why do you think electrodiagnostic medicine has grown the way it has over time?
Well, I think always new technology. You
Mhm.
know, EEG has grown because if you were sitting with me 30 years ago, sitting around the table, I'd say EEG is dead. Who cares about a 20-minute EEG? But it changed so much. And that was technology. That was, by getting the grid electrodes and being able to even better localize, and after better localizing, being able to actually fix some of the diseases, especially some of the really terrible ones. Uh, and I think then that brought the instrumentation, making it better and better and better. Now we're looking at things like AI, and it's pretty exciting stuff.
It is pretty exciting stuff. So, what equipment did you train on throughout your career, and what are some of the limitations you experienced early on with the equipment?
Well, in the school, we had 16-channel grass instruments, big old monster stud, the individual ink wells. So you basically, everybody knew who was in the EEG school because you had spots on your everywhere you went. And then for evoked potentials, we had the Tekka Model M. It was a Tekka Model M. It was the first one that could print the waveforms. And it had the little dot, 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 dot thing. And it went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It was really, I know a couple folks who still use the guts of it as a tool cart. Those things were built huge and they were big. One of the products had a circuit board. It was 8.5 by 11, and that was one circuit board for one amplifier. So if you wanted to go into the OR, you're pushing a monster because it had so much hardware in there to make it happen. And technologies happen that, and the same thing on cell phones, everything's microelectronic. Now I can lose my cell phone much easier than I could my grass EEG machine.
For sure. So over the years, technologies have changed. How would you describe some of those differences now? Because you used grass. What does it look like in today's realm of electrodiagnostics?
Oh, I've got to work with all of them, but most of my career I've been with the Natus, the Nicolay Natus realm right through. Did a lot of EEG when I was in Nicolay, but miniaturizing it, computerizing it, not bringing in stacks and stacks of paper to see if you could find that spike. Oh, the technology's gone all the way. I love the technology. And now we're seeing more of the technology where that was hardware technology. Now we're seeing a lot more of the software technology, and that's going to be the AI. It's going to be a lot of the coding that can adapt for itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a ride.
Going to be interesting for sure.
It's going to be interesting.
So what stands out most from your training experience in electrodiagnostic studies?
Just the people.
Yeah.
I can't think of instances where I ever felt like I was doing something stupid. And I always learned from my lessons and kept going. And then this magic thing happens. And I hope everybody gets to imagine it sometime. But, the role shifts. And instead of you asking the question to your mentor or your trainer, suddenly someone's asking you, and suddenly you know the answer. And you look back in your career, I look back at my career and said, when did I become good at this job? No clue. One day I was a tech doing it. Now, one thing I was fortunate is I always did work at teaching hospitals. So I always did have people there to ask. And that always helped me a lot. But, you just shifted from the guy, for speaking at conferences. You shifted from the guy sitting in the back row in the conference, making fun of the speaker, to the speaker himself. And it is just something that you can't imagine.
100%. And the people definitely make the most impact as you evolve throughout your career and how you help others. Then you've definitely done that for all of us.
Yeah. And I love it.
Yes. So how has the field of electrodiagnostic medicine changed over the course of your career? What changes did you experience throughout from 1982 to 2026 as you retired? What are the biggest things that stand out that changed?
Just the size. I can remember pushing a Nicolay Pathfinder down the hall, and I'm about 5'9", and I couldn't see above it, so I had to keep looking around it. And that's where, building circuit boards and the size of them, where we were building them by hand with solder. And now they're, robotic, miniaturized things. I mean, but that's changing in every aspect of our life, I think.
How do you think the advancements have impacted patient care?
Oh, that's tremendous. Oh, that's tremendous. I mean, we mentioned, when I first started doing EEGs, we were doing 20-minute, and you hope to get sleep, wake, hyperventilation, and photic done in that 20 minutes. How many seizures did we miss before we started doing long-term computer analysis and things like that? Oh my gosh, there had to be hundreds of thousands. We just didn't have it right, but that was partly the clinical side, partly the technical side, and then getting the instrument companies who could build them to make them work the way the doctors wanted them to work, and then to find what they needed to find. EEG just blew me away. I was really sure it was a dead thing. I said, who would do that? I would never do that.
What about from an EMG nerve conduction standpoint? How do you think it changed over the time throughout the course of your career?
Nerve conduction, less change, I think. Certainly the machines got computerized. Certainly, auto marking came and things like that. But by and far, a motor nerve conduction is a motor nerve conduction. But that made me good at it. See, I didn't have to learn anything new.
Throughout the time, did you notice any big breakthroughs in the space?
Oh, yeah. Certainly in some of the analysis in EMG, I remember interference pattern analysis or turns and amplitude analysis in EMG. Absolutely convinced that you wouldn't have to do any other EMG, that it would simply put everything else on the shelf. Why would you need spontaneous EMG if you have it? So if I had one package, that's what it'd be. Well, it requires quite a bit of patient interaction. And that's what made it not as popular as we thought it would be. But when those numbers were coming out, and it was going to be cool.
That's great.
Not so much. Single fiber was a step. That was a pretty big step. And that happened in my career. Holy cow, I am old. Some others, motor unit number analysis, things like that. Brilliant ideas. One of the things we face, I think, in the United States versus other places is time. We don't spend as much time with our patients. Over in, Denmark, they'll spend 2 hours with a patient. Even up in Canada, they don't rush through things. And I think that hurts us a little bit, because if we could do more of those esoteric tests that haven't been well proven, because they just take too long to do them.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we can get through some of that.
Me too.
I want someday to get a nerve conduction EMG made painless.
I would like to see that too.
Yeah.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced throughout your career? And as it evolved, what did you see some of the biggest challenges being?
It's going to sound terrible, but I can't think of any one of them. One of the things that, as I was thinking about this and thinking about, me closer to the end of my life, and thinking about my career and things like that, it brought me to Lou Gehrig. You know who Lou Gehrig was? He was a famous baseball player. He was called the Iron Horse because he was tough. He never missed a game. If he got a broken arm, he'd play anyway. He was tough. And then he got diagnosed with ALS. And if you've never looked it up, look up that his retirement speech in front of Yankee Stadium, and it's titled "The Luckiest Man Alive." And I think about that. I think about, here's a man who really made his mark in baseball, you know, and he never thought a negative thing about it. Inside this speech, he talks about, the umpires that he fought with and what a blessing that was. And he talked about the other players, right down to the groundskeepers. And he even mentions that his wife's mother would take his side over her own daughter. And he would say, what a blessing. And so, and then in summarizing, the last line was, you may have thought that I got a bad break, but I'm the luckiest man alive. And that's kind of how I feel when I get up in the morning. I don't I don't grumble and groan, and I get up and I start enjoying, and the fact that I happen to enjoy a very odd kind of test in a hospital where you get to shock each other, that does make me a little bit strange, a little bit odd, but but I've never regretted any of it. I have not regretted 1 minute of it.
You definitely have been a pivotal player in so many people's career, and we're so grateful for that. Very grateful. So I do have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Currently, can you think of any common areas of debate during your time pertaining to electrodiagnostic medicine? Like any big events where you saw people debating over the usage of electrodiagnostic medicine or anything like that?
It's not usage, it's more technique. My technique's different than yours. My technique's better than yours. We've seen doctors leave hospitals and go to other places because of it, but not not too much. Not too much.
So we're going to get to some harder questions right here.
Oh no.
What are
No.
you most proud of in your career as an electrodiagnostic technologist?
Just working with the people. I just love being at the conferences, talking to everybody, getting a feel for where everybody is. I love the people.
Mhm.
The people are always the best. I always have been.
And the people love you for sure. So, thinking forward 10 years from now, where do you see the fields of electrodiagnostic medicine and neuromuscular diagnostics going?
A lot of people think ultrasound's going to take over, but I don't think it's going to take over completely. I do believe the field is going to shrink. I don't think you're going to see kinds of EMGs that you see today, but I don't think it'll go all the way away. In some conditions, and you think of myasthenia gravis, it is the gold standard. Nothing does it as well. A couple of my fears, I guess, are when they start cutting back on reimbursements. You saw some of the neurologists and the physiatrists and some of those folks starting to step aside, and what's coming back behind them are people a little less qualified. We now see board certifications in physical therapy. Chiropractors have a neurochiropractor residency. So they're still going to get done. And I hope that these organizations care enough to do them right. What I don't want is them to be done haphazardly and then giving bad diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. So I completely agree with you on that. So what is some of the best advice that you received throughout your career from a mentor or someone?
Turn down the stimulus. I never listened, but
So, what's the best advice that you could give somebody as they move along through this career path?
Keep learning. Keep learning. Don't don't ever stop. One of the things I used to always joke about, in fact, it's now uh what do you call it? In a song. Some students of mine made a song and it's called, have you heard it?
I've heard it.
You
Yeah.
have. Okay, very good. Boots, books, and nerve roots. Well, the boots are because I wore boots, but the books is because I always had a book on my nightstand. I didn't read it every night, but it was always there. And I think I think reading is always, always important. Keep learning something. One of the things, in my opinion, that I like the best um, about nerve conductions is your doctor was always there. He's always with you. So maybe you read it in a book, maybe it's a patient you saw that day, or maybe you were looking to see what your patients were going to be the next day. You had information that was key, and it helped you. It helped you talk to the patient. It helped you make a connection. And I think that helps us a lot. A lot. When people come to me and say, "Oh, it hurts so bad," I always blame it on the tech. Always blame it on the tech. Because if it hurt that bad, well, sometimes we have to blame it on the doctor, but I think if it hurt that bad, they didn't set up a rapport.
Hmm.
And that's the most fun part of all, is just being with people and meeting people. And that's me.
Making an impact and leaving that ripple effect behind you.
Leaving that ripple effect. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, what for you, are there any other technologists or professionals in electrodiagnostic medicine you would recommend we speak with?
Sure. Um, I think, see, I kind of wish we had jumped on autonomics sooner.
Mhm.
We were doing autonomics 25 years ago, wondering, what is this? And we didn't understand it. It was so hard, you know. I think that's great. Definitely ultrasound. I may not like ultrasound, but it's just because I came a little too late in the game is all. It's
Mhm.
probably wonderful, and I think it's gonna be bigger. If we look at the AANEM and 10 years ago, they'd have 35 nerve conduction EMG workshops.
Mhm.
And just last year, I think it's completely the other way. I think they had more ultrasound than they did EMG. So it got to be ready for it. Even if I'm not, you got to be ready for it.
I think that ultrasound is definitely going to play a pivotal role, but I still think you'll need nerve conduction and EMG correlation to be able to put the full picture together. So I don't think nerve conduction and EMG are going anywhere. So, who are some key contributors in the field that you think should be recognized or documented?
We got to find the newcomers. The you, even like Wendy, she
Mhm.
is so good. You set her down with three people in a probe, and you can go to lunch.
Yep.
Your problems are solved. There's quite a few out there like that. I don't know as many of them. That's who you got to find. They'll still be there.
Hmm. So, if you could have a conversation with any leader or innovator in the neuromuscular diagnostic space, who would it be and why? I know you've had the opportunity to meet some of the great, like Dr. Kamira. So, I know you've met everyone. So, if you could sit down and have a conversation with them, who would it be?
Today it'd be Larry Robinson.
Really? And
Yeah. Oh,
why?
what's that?
Why? Why is he
Oh, he's
top?
brilliant. He's brilliant. He comes up with these ideas, and some of them you think, Larry, that nobody's going to listen to that. The CSI is Larry Robinson, and yet it took 10 years, but it's pretty commonplace. They teach it in every single workshop. So, but he is a brilliant guy. Lots and lots of accolades, lots and lots of papers. And of course, my colleague, Sanjeev, he's still the second smartest man I know. He is, everyone should be lining up just to have a conversation with him. We'd have our big meetings and we'd all be, getting down, accolades for this and accolades for that. Sanjeev and I would always find a quiet place and just sit and talk. And we always were kind of debated on who's going to retire first, because we always said that we weren't ever really going to retire. We were just going to be holding our EMG instrument in one hand and our boarding ticket in the other hand, and we're just going to die right there, happy as we can be. So I would say, of all the mentors, but of course I did work with him and didn't get to work with some of the great people that didn't work with the same company. But Larry Robinson, definitely.
So as we round out this interview, do you have any words of inspiration, anything you could share with us for those new to the field? Do you have anything that you want to resonate throughout people's careers?
Get to know it. Get to know it. Read about it. And that's what I say. Read about your patient you're going to see tomorrow. Before you go home at night, go ahead and read about it. What are they looking for? And what might you do to help them find that? Wouldn't that be cool if before the doctor ever saw the patient, you handed them that piece of paper and said, this is the problem. And it was a tricky one, and they had to agree with you. Wouldn't that make you feel great?
Make me feel great for sure.
Yeah, it's a great teamwork.
I completely agree. Well, in closing, I want to thank you for being one of the pioneers in our field, for serving as a mentor to so many, and for sharing your knowledge and experiences with us. Your contributions and dedication have helped shape the future of electrodiagnostics, and it has truly been an honor speaking with you today.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.